We're going to get started this morning with the legal bombshell that could provide a path to freedom for the Menendez brothers.
Late Thursday, the L.A. County District Attorney filed paperwork officially seeking to re-sentence Lyle and Eric Menendez for murdering their parents inside their Beverly Hills home back in 1989. They are currently serving life sentences without the possibility of parole. But at a news conference, DA George Gascon explained his decision.
I have to tell you that after a very careful review of all the arguments that were made for people on both sides of this equation, I came to a place where I believe that under the law, resentencing is appropriate.
The Menendez case captivated the country during the 1990s, and now again it's returned to the spotlight, in part thanks to a recent Netflix show, as well as documentaries about the case, and then a re-examination of evidence surrounding allegations of sexual abuse by their father. NBC News senior legal correspondent Laura Jarrett has the details.
After serving more than 3 decades behind bars, the Menendez brothers may soon be on the verge of release.
I believe that they have paid their debt to society.
Los Angeles County District Attorney George Gascon announcing that his office will support a resentencing of Eric and Lyle Menendez, convicted of murdering their parents in a Beverly Hills mansion, a case that captured the nation's attention, one of the first to be televised.
We're going to recommend to the court that the life without the possibility of parole be removed and that they will be sentenced for murder. They will be eligible for parole immediately.
The DA under pressure to re-examine certain evidence of sexual abuse the brothers say they endured at the hands of their father, Jose, then a high-powered music executive.
Because I think that often, for cultural reasons, we don't believe victims of sexual assault, whether they're women or whether they're men.
Those claims dismissed by prosecutors at the time, who argued they killed out of greed to get their inheritance money, and the abuse allegations were largely excluded by the judge when the brothers were tried and convicted in 1996, but viewed in a new light now, gaining fresh attention with a Peacock documentary and recent Netflix series, and from pleas by celebrities and extended family members who've called for their release.
This decision is not just a legal matter. It is a recognition of the abuse my cousins endured.
All that mounting pressure raised by critics of the DA's decision who question its timing as Gascon faces a tough re-election in less than 2 weeks, and why he's acting now when the brothers' pending petition for freedom laying out evidence of the abuse was filed more than a year ago.
Mr. District Attorney, when did you make the final decision in this case to recommend resentencing?
The final decision was made today. I have been reviewing arguments within my office, both in support and against it, and I came to my final conclusion a few hours ago.
That was Laura Jarrett reporting this move now only opens the door for a resentencing with a hearing before a judge likely in the coming weeks.
Let's bring in NBC News legal analyst Angela Senadella for more here. Angela, good to have you with us. Thank you. So let's first listen to a little bit more of what the LA District Attorney had to say about this resentencing decision. We'll talk on the other side.
We certainly feel we're very sure not only that the brothers have rehabilitated and that they will be safe to be reintegrated in our society, but that they have paid their dues, not only for the crimes that they committed, but because of all the other things they have done to improve the life of so many others.
So it's been almost 30 years since they were sentenced, and as Laura pointed out, there's a few things going on here. The Netflix of it all, but then also this election for the DA. Are you surprised by the timing, and what do you think of his argument there from a legal perspective?
Okay, so I am a little surprised. It's obviously a response to public outcry, but that doesn't necessarily bother me. A district attorney is an elected official position, and they are meant to respond to the public. They are meant to protect the community. So if that's what the community wants, it could be relevant. But from a legal perspective, it is kind of random, and this is why. The resentencing provision that he is recommending is usually reserved for defendants where there is almost over 100% 100% certainty that this person is no longer a threat to public safety. So it is incredibly rare, I would say extraordinary, to go in front of the judge and say, my department is not really sure whether or not this person should be resentenced, but I'm still going to recommend it. This provision is for people who there is total certainty there will never be any sort of recidivism. The second reason I think it's a little bit surprising and random is because it's usually reserved for people who have been forgotten by the legal system. Now, even though it might seem like the Menendez brothers have been forgotten, they have not. They have exhausted the appeals process. They've had fantastic, very expensive legal representation from the very beginning. And so, again, it is a little bit random legally.
So this all kind of stems from last year when the brothers' attorney filed a habeas petition saying we want a resentencing based on new evidence. Habeas petitions are rarely ever granted. Walk us through what they were arguing in this and how it got us to this point.
Yeah, so I would say that by his defense counsel was really an amazing publicity push because that petition, frankly, would have never worked.
Right.
What they were arguing was that these brothers were unlawfully detained, that it's unconstitutional, that this new evidence that came out would have vacated their conviction. A jury would have never found them guilty based on this. Now, note that this is not at all what the district attorney referenced. So that placed more public pressure upon the district attorney to consider resentencing. But the avenue that he chose has absolutely nothing to do with the petition whatsoever. Now, it is, though, still possible that at this point, if the judge does not agree with the resentencing, that it's still possible the habeas petition could still be considered. Again, that chance, though, of being approved is very, very low.
Let's talk about what happens next. So he said, they'd be eligible for parole right away is what I'd want to see, but that does not mean that they're walking out of prison anytime soon. There has to be a hearing before a judge. What goes on now?
Okay, so with the hearing in front of the judge, usually it's pretty straightforward because, again, these resentencing cases is where everybody agrees with certainty that there is no doubt that this person should be freed. So it's so unusual that the district attorney came forth and in that press conference even admitted that his own office is confused. So that's why I'm not entirely sure what the judge is going to do. Usually the judge just approves it, right? Because there is certainty. But in this case, this is so unusual, there's a chance the judge wouldn't. But if he does approve it, then the defendants would go in front of the parole board. And that would be very traditional. Same questions that a parole board asks any defendant and then possibly released immediately.
I was about to say, how soon could this possibly happen for them then?
So parole could happen immediately if the parole board agrees to release them. So based on the status hearing coming probably 30 to 45 days away, if the parole board meets right after that, it could be before the holidays.
And covering cases in California in the past, I know the parole board can make a decision, but then the governor could possibly overrule it. Is that a situation here?
Yeah, there are still possible steps forward, Joe.
But we'll take it one step at a time. All right, Angela.
A talker, a fascinating one. Thank you very much.
Let's switch gears to the campaign now. With just 11 days to go until the election, Vice President Kamala Harris is bringing in a few famous faces to boost her final push for the White House.
Yeah, in a star-studded event in Georgia yesterday, Harris was joined on stage by former President Obama, appearing side by side on the trail for the first time. Rock legend Bruce Springsteen also performed, and filmmaker Tyler Perry was there to support. And then tonight in Houston, Harris will be joined by Beyonce. As for former President Donald Trump, he was in Nevada last night. Mr. Trump ranted about his anti-immigration rhetoric using controversial and dehumanizing language before giving an ominous warning about how he thinks Harris would handle the economy.
If Kamala gets 4 more years, she will obliterate our economy, kill millions of jobs, kill thousands of people, too, by the way, and destroy your family finances, probably forever.
It's either Donald Trump in there stewing over his enemies list, or me working for you, checking off my to-do list. You have the power to make that decision.
Joining us now, NBC News correspondent Dasha Burns, who covers the Trump campaign, and our senior White House correspondent Kelly O'Donnell. Good morning to both of you. Dasha, let's start with you. Mr. Trump again making headlines for controversial comments on immigration, both in Nevada and earlier in Arizona, where this is a huge issue. Tell us about those events and his message in those states.
Yeah, well, look, the former president believes that immigration and the economy, but even more so immigration, and he said this publicly, could be the deciding factor in this election. He feels strong on the issue. But as we've gotten closer and closer to Election Day, Joe, his rhetoric has escalated. It's grown darker. And we heard a new line from him last night. Take a look.
Kamala's migrant invasion, given to us through gross incompetence, disqualifies her from even thinking about being president. We're a dumping ground. We're like a garbage can for the world.
Guys, this weekend, the former president is going to deliver his message on the economy and immigration. Potentially, we'll hear similar rhetoric in New York and Madison Square Garden. Not a swing state. Certainly Manhattan is as blue as it gets, but he believes that this is going to be an event where he can help deliver his closing message, have a massive rally. He's always dreamed of filling Madison Square Garden as a New Yorker, guys.
Kelly, let's bring you in here and talk about Vice President Harris. I just mentioned she was joined by a host of celebrities in Georgia yesterday, but maybe the most significant was the appearance of former President Obama with her at the same time. We've talked a lot about how Harris specifically is struggling for support among black men voters. What kind of impact does her campaign hope Mr. Obama could have on that?
Well, they're certainly trying to use the many skills of the former president and his ability to communicate to voters, especially the Democratic base, to drive out actual vote. At this point, there is a part of the message that is simply about converting people who would typically support Kamala Harris in this case, and to get them to actually cast a ballot, the get out the vote movement. So the former president has been doing this. He has been on the trail, but this was the first time that he was appearing with Kamala Harris. And of course, he has been speaking to African-American men and a number of the other prominent, notable celebrity types who were participating in that event are prominent black men. Samuel L. Jackson, the actor, Tyler Perry, the mogul in the media, and so forth. And so it's a way to try to say to black men and to address men broadly that if there is a gender gap here, they're trying to address it, also trying to make the case that even if there are things about Donald Trump that appeal to some of these men, especially younger men from what we see in polling, that Barack Obama was trying to say it's really about would Donald Trump work on their behalf in office? And Barack Obama's view is that Donald Trump would not serve the interests of those voters. So it's about getting out the vote in a crucial state. And at this point, certainly being in various states matters a great deal, but it is also about these big scale events in the final days. Having Bruce Springsteen there as well, of course, too, kind of a free acoustic concert that draws a lot of attention, a lot of eyeballs, and that's something that's been done before. 20 years ago, I was at a John Kerry event with Bruce Springsteen. He also appeared for other candidates since. So this is about getting attention and getting people to actually turn their thinking about the campaign into acting and delivering on votes.
And Kelly, on that theme, let's look ahead to Harris's visit to Houston tonight. We know Texas not considered a swing state. Maybe in the future it will be. Still, Beyonce's going to be there in her hometown. That's a huge draw. What does the vice president hope to achieve in a red state here?
Well, this is all about looking at Texas and how it is the centerpiece of a lot of the discussion about reproductive rights. The campaign would call it ground zero for the reproductive freedom argument because of Texas restrictive abortion laws. So this is all about using Texas to make an argument for Kamala Harris about an issue that we have seen since Roe v. Wade was overturned as very motivating for not only Democrats, but women who are Republican and independent as well, who want to see a restoration of abortion rights nationally. So Kamala Harris will be making a major address, according to the campaign, on this issue. And reproductive freedom is key. It happens to be also Beyonce's hometown. She will be there. Our sources tell us she will perform. She's already granted use of her song Freedom to Kamala Harris. So one would expect that would be playing. And we will also hear from women who have been directly affected by medical complications related to abortion services being restricted in Texas to make the larger argument. Joe, Savannah?
Dasha, back to you really quickly. We heard from Mr. Trump on Special Counsel Jack Smith as well. He's spearheading the federal election interference case against the former president. What did he say on that front?
Yes, Savannah, he said that he would, if elected, fire Special Counsel Jack Smith. Perhaps not so surprising, given he has railed against Smith in his rallies and in interviews and claimed a weaponized justice system. But this is the first time we have heard him explicitly say that he would fire Jack Smith if elected, guys.
All right, Dasha and Kelly, thank you both.
Well, turning now to news overseas, we have major developments in the Middle East overnight.
An Israeli airstrike killed at least 3 journalists and wounded several others who were staying in a guest house used by the media in southern Lebanon.
For the very latest, let's bring in NBC News international correspondent Raf Sanchez, who's in Tel Aviv for us. Raf, good morning. So the strike happened while the journalists were apparently sleeping at that guest house. We're hearing that it came without warning. The Lebanese information minister said this attack amounted to a war crime. What more do we know?
Savannah, Joe, good morning. Yeah, these journalists were sleeping in this guest house in what had been a relatively quiet area of southern Lebanon. There's a town nearby called Marjeyoun where there has been strikes. Journalists had left there thinking it wasn't safe. They went to this guest house in a nearby village. And as you said, this strike coming overnight, apparently with no warning. 3 journalists killed, a number of others injured in this attack. And this is the latest in a long string of journalists who have been killed, both in southern Lebanon, but also especially in Gaza. The Committee to Protect Journalists says more than 130 media workers have been killed in this war. The vast majority of them Palestinian journalists killed in Israeli airstrikes. This is by far the highest number of journalists killed in any conflict in modern history. As you mentioned, the Lebanese Information Ministry is saying that there were 18 journalists present at that guest house. They were representing 7 different media outlets. The information minister is calling this a war crime. And we have heard throughout this conflict appeals from the United Nations, from the U.S. government to Israel to do more to protect journalists, especially in Gaza. And so far, it appears those calls are going unheeded. Guys.
And Raf, there were several other raids overnight, and one of them Israel claims to have killed senior members of Hezbollah. There were also strikes in Gaza. A lot going on. What else can you tell us?
A lot going on. Very busy night. Israel says it continues to target Hezbollah commanders, Hezbollah fighters, Hezbollah military infrastructure across Lebanon. We know that one of the strikes was targeted at a major border crossing between Lebanon and Syria. Now, Israel says that that crossing was being used to resupply Hezbollah with Iranian weapons that were sent from Iran to Syria and then carried by land into Lebanon. But the United Nations is saying that crossing was also a major point for Lebanese refugees trying to get away from the fighting in Lebanon, trying to seek, kind of ironically, the safety of Syria, a country where there is still a civil war raging, a country that millions of people have fled over the last decade, trying to get out of. But now Lebanese civilians believing it may be safer there. Israel, as I mentioned, says that Hezbollah was using that civilian crossing to smuggle weapons. Guys.
Raf, let's talk about where this may go from here. On Wednesday, we heard Secretary of State Antony Blinken say he believes Israel has completed its objectives, should focus on peace. We also did just hear an Israeli army chief say that he sees the quote as a sharp conclusion to conflict. Where do the ceasefire talks stand? Are we any closer?
So negotiators are heading back to Qatar this weekend. The director of the CIA is going to be involved in those negotiations, as he has been in many, many rounds previously. I can tell you expectations are not particularly high, but what is noteworthy about this round of talks, it is the first round of negotiations since Israel killed Hamas's hardline leader Yahya Sinwar last week. Now, Blinken has described Sinwar as the main obstacle to these negotiations, so we will see. But U.S. officials have acknowledged that with Sinwar dead, it is not clear who is in charge of Hamas, and it's not really clear who can negotiate on the group's behalf. So this first round of negotiations will be a kind of test of whether Hamas is in a position to negotiate or not. As I mentioned earlier in the week, Egypt has put forward a proposal for a 2-week ceasefire in exchange for the release of just 6 Israeli hostages, and the hope would be to try to build momentum there towards a larger deal. Guys.
All right, Ralph, thank you so much.
As we head into the last weekend of October, and no doubt a lot of Halloween parties, we've got some frost and freeze alerts for parts of the Northeast this morning.
Angie Lassman has that and more for us. Hey, Angie, good morning.
Hi, good morning, guys. We do have some cool air that's kind of settled in place across the Northeast. The rest of the country, though, running way warm, but mostly dry. We've got just a couple of spots that we're tracking some of these rain showers working through this morning. Chicago specifically getting a little bit of rain this morning. That cold front, you might think that it's going to be a difference maker for the drought conditions that we're dealing with and the really extensively dry October that we've seen across the Northeast, but you'd be wrong because most of that rain is expected to kind of fizzle out. We'll see it wash out here before it makes its way to the Northeast. That means that dry conditions will persist. We'll keep it that way here for even, well into the weekend and into next week for Halloween. One thing to note, though, on that front, we do have the potential for the elevated fire risk today. You can see it has now expired for places like Boston to Nantucket, but New York City, Atlantic City, Philadelphia still included in that here as we get through the rest of your day today. Here's some of the temperatures that I mentioned. Once again, potentially records across much of the country. We've got the south stretching from the southeast basically to the central plains and out towards the southwest. Phoenix expected to hit 96 degrees today. We've got 90s across a lot of cities for folks in Texas. Dallas specifically 90 degrees for your high temperature later this afternoon. Even Memphis way warm. These are summer-like temperatures with a high of 86 degrees today. Indianapolis into the 70s. We'll see things dial back for most of the Great Lakes, the Northeast, and in parts of the Ohio Valley and the upper Midwest here for tomorrow. But notice everybody else that's still going to be running way warm. Tucson, nearly 100 degrees tomorrow. 90s for Austin. Mobile ends up into the mid-80s. So the warm conditions will persist here for that region. Now, temperatures across the Northeast and parts of the Great Lakes, we're going to go on a little bit of a roller coaster ride. We've got places like Chicago that will round out the weekend into the low 60s. Pretty typical for this time of year. We bumped that temperature up to the upper 60s, though, for the start of our work week. And then guess what? Near 80 on Tuesday. So we are back to those warmer than normal temperatures for folks across that region. Louisville, similar story there. Even New York City, 50s, kind of mid to upper 50s for Sunday and Monday. But we return to the mid 60s, guys, by Tuesday. So the moral of the story is, get your coat out, but don't take it with you every day.
This is why we talk about layers.
Yes.
All right.
I am ready for it to be just to stay fall.
Oh, don't worry, Savannah.
Yeah,
soon it'll be snowing. So
Probably hope. It never snows anymore either.
Well, there's that.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.